Good evening, everyone. Okay, we need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of 3/10/26. Patty, Steve, all those in favor? Okay, motion passes. Okay, Dr. Farrelly.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'd like to start off by acknowledging our Science Olympiads team, who successfully concluded their season at the annual state tournament in Syracuse, competing among the best teams in New York State. The team secured 2 state medals, placing within the top 10. So huge congratulations to our team. Congratulations to Joel Colas and Julian Cruz for their 7th place in the helicopter event. And again, Joel Colas and Gabby Gorzinski for their 8th place medal in Write It, Do It. Special thanks to our Science Olympiads head coach, Ms. Durbin, and assistant coaches Loretta Salerno and Carrie Reinhardt. Again, great job, everyone. On behalf of the Board of Education, in addition to acknowledging our Science Olympiads teams, congratulations to Mrs. Hetherington, Mrs. Fabrero, and Dr. Falcone, who we recognized along with 937 Nassau County and Suffolk County friends last night. Not just us, but school districts throughout the island recognized teachers, administrators, staff, right, a number of individuals for their outstanding support, right, and work within the school district. We are very fortunate to have Ms. Hetherington, Mrs. Fabrero, and Dr. Falcone. I'll be posting pictures at some point tonight or tomorrow. And that's all I have for this section of the agenda. We have several presentations planned for tonight.
You're going to jump to
Ms. Goebel. Yes.
All you.
Good evening, everybody. This month at the high school, preparation for Blue and Gold is in full swing. The show is April 16th to 18th. Blue and Gold is a West Babylon tradition that has been carried through over 60 years. As this year's Blue Team Total Team Captain, I would like to personally invite you all to come watch our show and see the result of the tireless work the students have put in these past months. Please let me know what night you and your significant other would like to attend, and I'll bring your tickets to the next meeting. Thank you.
Look at that. Attention. Oh, we will be there.
Okay. Dr. Farrelly.
Okay, so just some quick reminders. First, a couple of dates coming up. So the BOCES budget vote and BOCES board trustee election takes place on April 21st. The West Babylon budget hearing meeting date is May 5th here at 5 p.m. And the annual district budget vote and trustee election, May 19th, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., administration and Sanapog. Later on today, we do have a budget presentation. However, we're going to start off with continuing with our department updates that we've been doing, obviously, for the last couple of months. We will start with our K-8 music program, since that's the presentation that is on screen. So at this point, I would like to invite our music fearless leaders, Mr. Heaton up, and also Mr. Duran, who will present us our music program overview. It'll take like a second to yeah. Takes a little time to warm up, Mr. Duran. There we go. Just want to make sure everyone at home can hear you. So
glad to be with you all, and thank you for the opportunity to present on behalf of the K-8 music program. I'd like to take a few minutes to share with you what music looks like for our students in grades K-8 and why the experience is so important for them and for all of us, especially during their formative years. So if we could go to slide 2, or program overview. At the elementary level, all of our students get general music once every 6 instructional days. In those classes, students are really learning how to listen, create, and express themselves through music. They're singing, they're moving around, they're exploring rhythms, playing instruments, starting to really understand how music works. And for many of them, this is their first chances to feel successful as part of something that is creative, collaborative, and shared. These students also begin learning recorder in 3rd grade, and then in 4th and 5th grade, we introduce them to the band and orchestra program where they can choose to play a musical instrument. We also have a chorus program that is open to all interested students in grades 4 and 5. So having these music opportunities available for our youngest students is especially important. It helps make sure that every student has access to music and builds a strong foundation as they get older. I'm going to move on to the next slide, which would be our K through 8 program overview. At the junior high school level, students can choose to participate in band, chorus, or orchestra. The students who are not in a performing group are scheduled for general music in grades 7 and 8. At this stage, music really becomes more than just a class. It's a place where students learn responsibility, they learn teamwork, they learn discipline as they work towards a goal that they can be proud of. It also gives them a strong sense of belonging, and for someone like me who's been teaching middle school for so many years, I know how important that is at this age. We aim to offer different pathways so that every student can participate in music in a way that works for them. We can move on. Slide 4. K through 5 highlights. What we've seen over the past year, this year, has really shown how much it matters when students have more opportunities to be involved in the music program. As you know, last year our budget and transportation limitations made it difficult for us to offer music opportunities for our elementary students outside of the school day. These conditions, I'm pleased to say, greatly improved this year, and we were able to expand access to all of our elementary performing groups, and that greatly strengthened the structure of those programs. As a result, we've seen dramatic increase in participation, greater consistency across the buildings and the grade level, and a noticeable increase in student engagement and enthusiasm. Moving on to the next slide, K through 6 through 8 highlights. Because of the reduced opportunities available to them last year, this year's 6th grade class came in with lower performance expectations that we usually see in our performing groups. To help offset this, we adjusted instruction to increase our focus on building basic foundational skills. We also strengthened the general music curriculum in grades 7 and 8 with the addition of the Quaver Ed music curricular software. This software provides interactive experience that helps students apply some of the skills we teach in class. What we're seeing now is really encouraging, not just growth in musical skills, but in confidence, participation, and overall engagement. Our students are taking more ownership and pride in what they're doing, and that's showing up in their performance. If I can share an example with you of this, I'm very pleased to tell you that this year we had 3 junior high school students who earned the first chair in the seating auditions at Skamia All-County Festivals, which took place, I believe it was last week. And these accomplishments are a true reflection of the progress that we are seeing. If I can move on to budget and spending, slide 6 and 7. Our budget is focused on what keeps the program running day to day, things like materials and supplies, repair and maintenance of district-owned instruments, which includes tuning acoustic pianos, giving students access to opportunities offered by our professional music affiliates, such as Skamia and NISMA and some others. At this point in the year, our spending is on track with what we were projecting, and we continue to monitor it closely, make sure that our budget expenditures directly support students and those needs of our program. We also look for ways to be as efficient with our spending as possible. For example, making the most of the instruments and materials we already have, and using systems that help streamline ordering and reduce delays. If I could go on to slide 8. Department needs and requests. Looking ahead to 26-27 school year, one key priority is restoring the previously approved 5-year instrument purchase plan. I'm aware that you have all taken steps already to move forward with reinstating this plan, and I want to thank you sincerely for your support with this. The plan will allow us to add new instruments, replace old instruments that are no longer usable or working, helps to ensure that students whose families may not be able to provide an instrument can still participate in our programs. As we look beyond the next few years, an important step is establishing a sustainable long-term budget plan for instrument replacement and equipment needs. Having that kind of structure in place will help ensure that the program remains consistent, sustainable, and long-term and reliable, for all students over a length of time. Additional priorities include supporting program continuity during leadership transitions within the department, maintaining student participation in our professional music affiliate programs, and restoring junior high school club music opportunities that have been reduced in previous budgets. And looking ahead, slide 9. For the remainder of this school year, our focus is on continuing strong instruction, supporting students as they prepare for our spring concerts, regional music festivals, such as our upcoming NISMA Festival. At the same time, we are planning for next year by prioritizing program continuity, maintaining instructional resources, and establishing a sustainable plan for the purchase and replacement of instruments and core music equipment. In closing, slide 10, I just want to say that it's truly been a privilege to support music education in this district for all these years, and to see the impact our program has on students has been very gratifying. It gives students a place to feel successful, connected, and part of something meaningful, as I said before. I want to thank you all for your support. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Can I just ask you, congratulations on your retirement, first of all. You're a loss. Can you just describe chamber chorus? What is chamber chorus as opposed to chorus?
So Chamber Chorus is a group that would meet outside of the school day for some of my more advanced singers who want to have an additional experience. They would perform in a concert, or sometimes we have them performing at community events.
Okay.
Like the Lions Club tree lighting is an example of that. Some of you have seen that. It really gives those kids a chance to really enjoy the art of performing outside of the entire class that they meet with during the day.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you.
Quick question. Yeah, congratulations on the retirement. And also, I know you had, I think it was maybe 2020 or 21 when you came to us and we established the instrument purchase plan, the multi-year deal. We got away from that, obviously, for a variety of reasons, so I apologize for the delay. I'm glad that we're back on track and hopefully in a better place to continue to support the department. One of the things I recall you saying, even back then, and I think it was echoed by Mr. Heaton, was these days you don't have as much time for individual instruction, or where you have rooms of students at different levels with different instruments. Obviously, maybe back in the day, a long time ago, there was more teachers available to do that type of level instruction.
Yeah.
We're probably not the only ones that have that problem. Are there anything that other districts are doing differently to have more individual instruction on those instruments?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of the teachers being able to balance the schedules in a way that works best for the students.
Right.
Obviously, we have a highly advanced student in the same group with someone who's still struggling to read music. It is
Right.
challenging to teach those two students together.
Right.
So we do make changes during the year as students improve or decline. Either way, it can go both ways.
Okay.
And we will adjust the schedules to the best of our ability.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's still not to the level it probably was.
No,
Yeah.
we've lost a lot of sections of lesson periods over the years. A lot of that has to do with declining enrollment, but as a result of
Yeah.
declining enrollment, it's not as easy as declining a math teacher or cutting a math teacher.
Right.
Because the whole program becomes impacted when you cut teachers in the arts.
Yeah.
So it's different.
Okay. Is there internships or something that could ever be explored? I know I'm probably opening up a can of worms there with a question like that, but to assist with the lessons of the individual instruction?
Not in the, I think, traditional internship way that you're thinking
Right.
of.
Free, I mean, yeah.
Right,
basically.
right, that's right.
Yeah,
I was
of
trying to
course.
hold off on saying
Yeah, I mean, I'm
yes,
just
yes.
trying to think, obviously we can't get back to the staffing, we don't have the enrollment we had, but also the staffing that we're reflecting upon. But I was just wondering, because it keeps getting echoed every year, we hear it every year. Well, you didn't mention it this year, but I do recall, that they just don't have the time or the ability to give that instruction.
Well, it's being given, it's just a challenge, as Mr. Duran shared,
Individualized.
right, in the sense of,
Yeah.
right, that even if it may be a small group from numbers enrollment, right, number of
Yeah.
students in the group, that the level of, depending on where each student is with that instrument can
Right.
be extreme,
Yeah.
right? Even if it's a group of 9 students or, right, 7 students.
Yeah, and I
That's
will
the
say too
challenge.
that the enrollment, because it's been going down, the size of performing groups is also smaller.
Yeah,
Yes, it
So
is.
it gives us a little bit more flexibility with what we can do.
right, I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Duran.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Now entering into our secondary world, Mr. Heaton.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to describe our program and give you updates as to where we're at and what we're looking forward to. Can I do this on? No. Okay. So an overview of our program, grades 9 through 12. We have several courses that are used by the students for graduation requirements. Those are our traditional ensembles, band, choir, and orchestra. And we also offer basic musicianship courses with the opportunity to perform on either the piano or the guitar. Outside of the school day, we also have several clubs that the students can participate in, most of which are performing at the Pops concert on Thursday night. Our jazz band, treble choir, chamber orchestra, the guitar ensemble, and new for this year, our mariachi band. And we also offer several electives during the school day when enrollment requests are there, including music theory, which has an AP course as well, piano or guitar 2 and 3, and musical theater courses in both performance and theater technology. Our main goals are to continue what was begun at the elementary and middle school levels, where we're giving the students a chance to perform advanced repertoire and better their skills, continue to develop as leaders within the program, and to support the creative expression and continued engagement in the arts that our students have. We have several ensembles. The mariachi band actually came about. Several students wanted to do something like that, and we were able to get it up and running this year. They performed at a couple of different events so far, like our Culture Club a few weeks ago, and that group has really taken off so far. And there are several students who will help out running rehearsals if the director is unable to and there's another teacher who's around to supervise. The students will self-run ensembles to get additional performance time in. If we can move on to the next slide. Highlights of the first half of the school year. As Mr. Duran had mentioned, budget difficulties last year made it difficult to do things to the way we had been accustomed to doing them for a while. And to echo what Mr. Paralillo had said, in terms of the lesson group sizes, less instructional periods meant that the lesson groups became larger than is ideal for the individualized instruction that we were talking about. What's happened this year is, as a number of factors have allowed us at the high school level, we have been able to have smaller lesson groups where we can separate the students a little bit more. It's a combination, like we were saying, less students in the ensemble, which is less than ideal, but having the lesson periods within our schedules to work with has allowed us to kind of maximize resources and move the students around as best we can so that our group sizes are a little bit smaller. And what we've seen from that is the more targeted instructional approach has helped the ensembles grow. Our winter concert, I felt, went incredibly well. And several community members had mentioned their joy at hearing that concert, and I think that's a direct response to having the instructional periods working as they are this year. The increased student engagement from that also allows for more challenging repertoire, which ultimately increases student engagement and helps us with retention from year to year within the program, and that can only help us in the long term. Moving on, as Mr. Duran had said, our budget situation for this year, we're pretty much right on track where we expected. As it is a K through 12 department, A lot of what he said applies to the high school as well, and we're on track with where we want to be. We closely monitor the spending. We're maximizing use of the existing instruments and materials where possible, and we want to ensure that our students are able to continue participating with our professional affiliates like NISCAM, NISMA, SCMEA, and LISFA. As we move on to our year-to-date expenditures, as we were saying, it's pretty much right on track with everything. And I don't want to repeat the same information because I respect your time and don't want to tell you the same thing twice. So we're going to move on to the next slide, our departmental needs and requests for the following school year. Again, I would like to also thank you for all of your work in helping us get the 5-year purchase plan back on track. It will really help the department by giving us the opportunity to get students on instruments that will work better without duct tape and a little bit of elbow grease to put them together sometimes. And if we are in a place where we can continue that in the future, that would be tremendous for helping our students out. For the program continuity and sustainability, as Mr. Duran said, we want to ensure leadership transition with his well-deserved retirement. We want to make sure that our program is able to continue operating as it has been, and whatever that's going to look like next year, we just want to make sure that there is a plan in place, because whatever happens at the K-8 level directly impacts what's happening at the high school level as well, and we want to make sure that our program stays where it's at, if not improving. And looking ahead for the remainder of this year, we want to continue what we've been doing, delivering our high-quality music instruction. Our SCMEA concerts took place last weekend. We had several students at the high school who participated in the band and the chorus. The marching band performed at the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Babylon on Sunday, which was a great experience. As I mentioned, we have the Pops concert coming up this week, and then our spring concerts are the first week of June, so we have a lot going on for the remainder of the year. We want to, again, plan for that leadership transition and prioritize the staffing and program needs of next year and beyond, maintaining the offerings that we've been able to offer our students while maintaining that flexibility as best we can to provide the individualized instruction where possible. And that is it from me. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Good.
Sure.
You know, going back pre-COVID, and then even when you and I were in band, the 9th through 12th graders were one ensemble. Then COVID happened, separated. Now, echoing what Chris said about having, you know, an internship or free lessons. I mean, I remember a lot of 9th graders, they would look up to the 12th graders and, you know, it would help
Right.
support them and learn the music and whatnot. Is there any thought to ever go back to, I mean, the band as is split is so small.
We, if I remember correctly, that split happened when I was still in high school, because I was only in a 9 through 12 ensemble for a year.
Okay.
So it had been the 90s when we had first split it, and we do appreciate the ability to have that separate track 9 through 10 and 11 through 12, because the development, sometimes a 9th grader, they might be looking up to the seniors, but the seniors are at a level where they can perform music that the 9th graders would greatly struggle with. And we want to make sure that all the students experience the same success as they can. So if we have an ensemble for 9th and 10th graders that's playing level 4 to 4.5 music, and then as juniors and seniors they can play 5 to level 6, and there are 6 levels, as I'm just spouting out numbers here. The pieces are graded levels 1 through 6, so if we have a level 4, 4.5, and then a level 5 through 6 ensemble, that gives all of those students a chance to continue to develop through their high school years. And just in speaking with some friends in other districts who teach high school, I know these ensemble sizes are across Long Island in many cases. One of my best friends teaches out in Nassau County, and usually Nassau County is like where everybody looks to for music, and he says, my 11-12 band is 35 kids. So it's something that's across Long Island, and all of us, COVID definitely did not help. The changes that we had to make for health and safety reasons might not have been the best options for musical development, but continuing to be around was much more important than the musical development at that stage. So it does kind of impact where we're at today, and that's something that we've all been trying to figure out. How can we recruit kids back and get the program to the numbers where it had been?
Yeah.
And part of that, as the number of students in the district has also been changing. I believe it was last year when I presented for our program evaluation, it's roughly 25% of the high school is enrolled in the music program. And our ensembles might be smaller, but I think going back several years ago, we were probably in that same, like, between 22 and 28% range. So if the percentages are still there and we don't have the pool to pull from, that makes it difficult also. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Duran, a request if you can send me the names of those 3 students that you referenced so that we can acknowledge them on the website and social media. The 3 students referenced with regards to Skimia. Yes, the first year, yes. Send them over to me. Thank you.
What would have been another word for free? Because I saw you trying to think of a way to say it, and I'm unpaid, no, payroll positive, I don't know. Well, is it volunteer? I don't know, internship? All right,
All right.
next up.
So next up, we have Mrs. Alfano in the group. Come on up. Thank you for being here. Who will be providing an art department K through 12, right, overall presentation. You will love all the visuals. They belong to all of our
absolutely.
students.
I'm just going to lower this. I'm a little shorter than Mr. Heaton.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening. I'd like to begin tonight by thanking Dr. Farrelly and the Board of Education for allowing me to present on behalf of the K-12 Art Department. So right now I'm just going to go through a quick overview of the budget tonight. So if we're looking at all of this beautiful artwork, all the artwork that you are seeing in this slideshow is all the artwork that has been done this present school year. Tonight I'm going to be discussing just the 25 to 26 accomplishments by building level, because there are quite a few, the current year budget summary, as well as departmental needs and proposed requests for next school year, and just looking ahead for this current school year. Right now, we're taking a look at the elementary art program. So our art program for K-5 has a lot of community-wide as well as school-wide activities that we're involved in. All of the work that you're seeing here is all work that is done a little above and beyond, as you would say, for the K-5 art teachers. So this is stuff that is taking their lunch and prep as well as before and after school involvement. So if you look at the poster contest, there's quite a few poster contests from this school year, as well as school involvement, our school displays such as the Board of Education Week, as well as some community artwork displays in the library. So we do have an ongoing collaboration with Carice Mitchell at the library. So she is she's the children's coordinator at the library. So right now, if you take a look at the beautiful artwork that's displayed there, those are current school year displays from our elementary different buildings. We do have an upcoming one also in April for Sanapog. The junior high also has a lot of program highlights, one of which is a recent. So we won one award last year for the Suffolk County Water Authority Art Contest winner. So that was Zara Gomez. This was done in May, and then she actually just won, so hot off the press, the Town of Babylon poster contest. So this is something that she'll be recognized tomorrow, actually, at the Town of Babylon. So Zara Gomez again, and she won first place in the ages 11 to 19, which is astounding. So I'm really looking forward to see what comes of her future. As far as our school involvement, we do have face painting with St. Baldrick's. So St. Baldrick's happened on Friday. So our art workshop, which is our 7th grade advanced class, did participate in that. We also have quite a few poster contests from this school year. Obviously, our Town of Babylon poster contest, we only did have one entry for the junior high level. So that was very impressive that Zara did win that. We also worked in partnership with the PTA for the GOAT contest, as well as some school displays. Obviously, as you can take a look, there is a thumbnail on the bottom left-hand corner of one of our wonderful students with a charcoal portrait that is also recognized in the back of the boardroom here, as well as some community displays. So the bottom middle is our art workshop display for the month of Dino-November, actually. So it's called Dino for Dinosaur November at the public library. So that was some beautiful artwork that you'll see on another slide, as well as the Doodle for Google entries, which we like to get involved in each year with our studio art class, which is our advanced 8th grade class. At the senior high school art program level, we do have quite a bit of community involvement as well as some school involvement. Currently, we had our National Art Honor Society induction ceremony today, actually. So we inducted 11 new members of that. There is a lot of community service that goes involved with that. So if you look under the community involvement, the mural design for Smith's Point is an ongoing, collaborative, in-progress mural design that's actually going to be working with the selected students and with a professional artist who will actually be creating the artwork, which will be done in the near future. They also have participated with Valentine's Day cards at Brookside Multicare Nursing Home, holiday centerpieces. All of this is due to they need 30 community service hours just in the genre of art in order to be able to continue their membership. So it really is wonderful. We also have a lot of school displays. So if you take a look at the top right corner, that is one of James Fulton, who's an art teacher at the high school. He has these beautiful brownstones that are framed right now in the hallways. They're really a nice sight to see if you're able to take a look at that. And then we also have our wonderful fine arts gallery, which we're very appreciative to have that also this year to continue to display artwork. So right now we do have some wonderful artwork that's on display, and the one on the bottom left-hand corner is also featured from the month of October and November. One of our new initiatives this year in partnership with the West Babylon Public Library was something that we are calling community coloring pages. So what these are is exactly how it sounds. They are very large-scale black and white images that have been done with our upper-level classes as well as some of our art clubs. And what's happening is they're creating these beautiful pieces that are just black and white, and then they're sent up to the library, and they're displayed on tables within the children's section of the library, and then community members are coming up to coloring them. I actually have brought my own children over there, so it varies in range. So you can see from some of the pictures, we have like little children to elder adults, so it really is a nice community program that we hope to continue in the near future. Another curricular highlight that I would like to take a look at is our art workshop program. As I stated earlier, this is our 7th grade advanced class, which we are very grateful to have been able to run a section of this year. Just to kind of cover a little bit about what this class is, this is our advanced level 7th grade program, which is going to teach more advanced techniques. So in looking at this, if you look at the bottom row where it notes there's dinosaurs from the month of November, they have A, B, C, and D. Those actually correlate with the above row. So student A correlates with the dog above it for student A. So you can see that the bottom row is actually work that was done prior to instruction. So I do teach this class, so it is a wonderful class, not just because I teach it, obviously, but because it really has wonderful curricular highlights. So you can see the growth of the students. The work that's on the bottom row was done before any prior instruction from myself. So it's just their basic understanding from 6th grade with value, as well as their 7th grade art course if they had it at that time. So if you look at the growth from like just student A to student A above with the animals, it really is quite impressive. So there's a little bit of data with that. As far as the senior high school, this is all artwork done by our AP course, which we are also very grateful that that was brought back this school year, and we hope to continue that into next year. This class is our AP level where it's really going to give you more of that college level artwork. These students are working in collaboration with one another, and just that, if you think of like a varsity sports team, it's like a varsity art program, right? So we're trying to build that, so they're working together. They all have the same caliber of actual art talent, and they're working together and really creating this wonderful, unique environment. In terms of the art budget, so if you take a look at here, you're going to see that we have the junior high school on line 1, and then the senior high school in the middle row, as well as the K-12 art supply and materials budget. We do not have a K-5 art and supplies and materials budget. That is under the school building levels with the principal that delegates how much is per each building for art. In terms of the actual budget expenditures, we were right on track this year. We did have one unexpected expenditure, which is not going to be a recurring expense, which is very good because it was $10,000. This was due to the New York State phone-free law. So in the past, with our photography program at the high school level, we did use cell phones to take photos. We did have a few cameras that were utilized by the teacher themselves that brought it in to expose them to the equipment, but most of the work was done with cameras on their phone, excuse me. Then from there, the work was then developed in terms of online manipulation with the actual Chromebooks and with computers. So now, due to the fact that we couldn't use those, we did have to have a curricular adjustment, which was actually a very positive thing because now they're working with cameras, they're exposed to the actual functions of the cameras, so it really has been a very great positive, and that is a non-recurring expense, so we'll be able to maintain that for the future. As far as departmental needs and proposed requests, in terms of the elementary, right now we do have quite a few kilns in the district. The kilns, which is, for those of you that may not be aware, that's what's cooking the clay. We haven't really had an elementary ceramics program in quite a few years, primarily due to the fire at South Bay, which was a long time ago, but since then we didn't have it established where we were using those kilns district-wide. So since then we did have some curricular changes. So I would like a chance to kind of discuss the needs with each building, with also Dr. Farrelly, as well as Mr. Payne, and just really determine what our future needs are for the program to see if we want to continue this, in which case they would need to be maintained, or if we feel that it's not necessary for the future. As far as another concern that really arose this year was our K-5 model for the traveling art teacher. So right now we do have one teacher that teaches in 5 respective buildings, 4 elementary schools and 1 junior high. In some days she is teaching in 3 buildings. There are 2 days in the K-5 6-day cycle in which she's in 2 buildings. As you can imagine, this is a very taxing position to be in because it really involves you being involved with 6 different email chains, 6 different preparation of materials, 6 different preparations of students and classes. So it really is a very challenging schedule. I would like for that to be reconsidered, really for the benefit of the students overall. At the junior high, due to the real wonderful success of the art workshop program, I would love to see an additional section if that is at all possible. In the past, prior to the 2021 budget, we did run 2 sections of this class. So this class usually has a group of 28 students for a total of 56 students. If we were able to continue this, I would love to see that 56 student mark met. This year, after not having it for 5 years, we did have 42 applicants, which is actually very strong, considering this was only established at the end of June last year. So we really had 1 week to get those students together. So I would love to see this program continue. I think this would be a wonderful not filler, but really is like kind of like our junior high sports, as I related that to sports. I was a D1 athlete, so I'm right there with you. But if you think about it as a junior high program, if we're able to build that now, that is only going to help us build our art program at both the senior high school level. Another proposed request is for next year is to reevaluate the K-12 chairperson model. I will talk about that further on the next slide. At the 6th grade art club was not run this year. That was not due to budget reasons. However, it is affiliated with the budget because there were other clubs that did run in lieu of 6th grade art club. 6th grade art club usually services about 120 students. We do a lot of community service projects, so that not running this year did hurt us a little bit in that respect. So I would love to see that promote more art interest in the future if we are able to run that. At the senior high school, right now, I would love to also see the opportunity to have a repair budget. We've had a lot of ongoing issues with our kiln since last May. That being said, our kiln is finally working, so I do need to make an adjustment for that slide. So we're very happy that it is working, but as you can imagine, with 112 students this year in the ceramics program, not having a kiln working at about, let's say, 5 projects per student, that's quite a lot of material that is not being completed right now. So we are looking for ways to complete that for the rest of the school year, and that it is working. But to have a maintenance budget really would be very helpful because we would be able to get someone in to service the kiln and other non-recurring expenses such as our airbrush program with air compressors and such. Another request for next year would be to take a look at some of the classes that did not run in the past, such as basic ceramics or AP art history, as well as printmaking. As I said, if we can circle back to the Art K-12 chairperson model, taking a look at the current responsibilities, just to highlight a few. As you may know, so I do teach full-time, so I'm teaching a full 5 schedule. Right now I actually am covering another class, so it is 6 classes per day, which does not leave a lot of time for the planning and implementation of some of our art initiatives. In terms of art department meetings, while we have a K-12 program, I do have to run 3 separate meetings per every time. This is due to our union and our contracts. We can't have teachers come prior to a certain time, and they can't leave after a certain time. So it does make things very challenging. I have to attend a lot of district level meetings that are just related to my chair duties. You'll see in the concerns that I did have 55 meetings just until actually today that were chair related duties that I had to attend to. So it does get very taxing. This also in turn causes to have subs for a lot of my classes. So I did have 15 coverages so far this year where I was not able to be there for my students due to those meetings. Some of the other concerns that really arise are in terms of the curriculum. So to oversee 6 buildings effectively really does take time. I should be pushing into those elementary buildings as well as the senior high school. However, the senior high school and junior high school do take up a lot of time due to those meetings, as I said earlier, and I am not able to really push into the elementary buildings as much as I have in the past. It is very, very difficult, and to really oversee the teachers in action and seeing what they're teaching and how they're teaching to really benefit the K-12 program is really important. The positives of the release time would be to plan effectively, obviously with that curriculum, push into classrooms, helping new teachers. We've had many leave replacements as well as part-time teachers, which has taken up a lot of time where I do need to push in, help the teachers with the curriculum, make any adjustments that might be needed to really help support our students and staff. Right now, if I had that release time, I would be able to observe those teachers and help them a little bit more and support them. We would also have a little bit more time for planning new initiatives, which I love, but unfortunately, just due to time, it's very difficult. We do have a district-wide art show on the plan, which is something I will speak about a little bit further on the next slide, I believe. So looking ahead for 25-26 for the rest of the school year, as I was just referring to the K-12 District Art Show, so this is something that has been in a planning process for the last 2 years. It was approved by Mr. Payne. However, just due to the time and the idea of implementing this would be a select K-12 show. It has been very difficult. Our hope is to add this into the calendar for the next school year, so it is on there and we will be able to plan accordingly. We also have some mural painting, which is going to be coming up for the bricks and minifigs. If you're not familiar with that, if you don't have young children, it's the Lego store in West Babylon, so it's very popular. We are very excited to have an upcoming mural, which will be done by our 8th grade advanced studio art class. We do have also some community coloring pages coming up, as I talked about earlier, community art participation, one in which those animals that you saw, the dogs and cats from Art Workshop, to display those with our Babylon Animal Shelter, because those were all student work that was done with work from Babylon Animal Shelter, with references from Babylon Animal Shelter. And we have some libraries displays also coming up for the remainder of the school year. If you take a look in the center, we have quite a few art shows, so we're very excited, all of which will be sent out individualized invitations for all of you, so we hope that you can join us at one, if not all of them. That would be wonderful. And then just in terms of our anticipated challenges and solutions, as I said earlier, our kiln has been fixed, so I don't anticipate that there will be any continued maintenance for this school year. However, for the future, because this was something that was not planned for, I do want to just keep that in mind that it may be a concern with our budget moving forward. Also with the airbrush class, our airbrush class, if you're not familiar with that, that is where they're taking stencils and they're using paint that's being sprayed through a compressor. It is wonderful, however, that has not been maintained in about 15 years. So it really is at the point where we need to kind of reevaluate that, because moving forward, we may need to see some adjustments for the actual equipment. And I would just like to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the K-12 Art Department. All of the work that you're seeing on this slide is actually all of our ceramics coursework, just so you have an idea of the level of artwork that we're talking about. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it at this time.
When you mention the equipment, is that, obviously there's, like with the kiln, there may not be needs in the elementary, I think you said. When would we find out the cost of that stuff, or how do we calculate what that is?
Well, she mentioned that in terms of the elementary kiln, we first have to have a discussion.
If you even need the
on whether or
program,
not we
right.
need-
But I know
exactly,
the
in
one
terms
you
of
said
those
has to be
spaces.
maintained constantly in the older grades.
Sure. So just to give you an idea, so right now the maintenance of this kiln, we did have to bring someone in. We weren't sure at first if this was an electrical component, so if there was something more of a building related concern. So I have been working with Michael Judas since last May in regards to that. So it was determined that it was a kiln issue, so we did bring in someone just who is a kiln specialist. The bill for that, which we just received, was $2,400. We're hoping that's a one-time fee, and just to give you an idea, if we were to replace the kiln, it's about $4,000. So it's one of those where you really have to determine what would be the best to continue maintenance of that or to buy a new kiln at that point. It might be a good idea to have a backup, which is something we've discussed, just in case we do have an issue that occurs like we did this year where we were not able to use that kiln, especially when we have such wonderful ceramics students that are really excited for this class. But just due to the fact that we were not able to cook that kiln, so if you're not familiar with clay, you do have to cook it in a kiln prior to do something called a glaze, which would then really firm out that clay, and then it's usable. Because they couldn't cook that clay, we weren't able to move it. It's very, very, very fragile. So even we did bring some of the clay down to the junior high school to see if we could use that kiln, but just in traveling, a lot of those pieces broke. So it is something where you really need it very close by. So just in terms of the future needs, as we said with Dr. Farrelly, I don't anticipate us having to make any decisions for next year at all with the kiln, but really just evaluating whether this is something we want to have at the elementary, because most districts do have kilns at the elementary level. In the past, like when I first started, we had working kilns in every program, every elementary building, and it was something that was part of our curriculum. But like I said, it really is something where I would like to figure that out for the future.
Sure. And what about the airbrush equipment?
Airbrush equipment, right now, the compressor needs, so if we were to just replace the compressor, it's about $375, so that might be a smaller fee for this school year. But really, to maintain that equipment, we also would have to kind of contact more of someone that's really more familiar with that equipment to see if we can get in like more of an expert in that area, in that field, to evaluate that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Wow. It really is beyond impressive, right? Like the work of all of our students. It just,
Yeah. Apple pie. See the apple pie? That's crazy.
all right. So thank you to our music department and our department leaders. Thank you for leading our departments. And again, you know, they mentioned it a little bit. I want to emphasize, right, that these are department cheerleaders that oversee and manage multiple buildings, right? Staff members in multiple buildings, budgets in multiple buildings, needs in multiple buildings. So I thank you for all of that, because I know that that's certainly an added piece, right, to your leadership role when you have to manage so many different aspects, right, but across the district. So thank you. All right, so at this point, we are going to start our budget presentation for the evening. We have it there. Okay, let's just kind of pivot over. Okay, all right. So I will kick us off, and then Ms. Galante will start at some point. So just by way of recap, we have had several board meeting budget presentations, right? We divided it up by various different components. And today's meeting kind of puts all three components together, right, with all of the modifications that we've been doing up to date as information has come in. As the board is aware, right, there will still be additional changes that happen, right? Most recently, we received some retirement notifications, right? Anything that's kind of come in the last couple of days, you know, hasn't been, you know, adjusted. That will be reflected, right, in our next budget presentation. So this is reflecting kind of where we are. Or where we were, I should say, as of like Thursday or so of last week. So some of our key budget component increases that we've referenced beforehand, right, are projected health insurance increases. And again, this is not just for our district, this is for other districts, right? We are projecting, again, depending on which aspect of health insurance increases between 12 and 15%. Our whole region, right, is projecting, again, similar percentages increases based on the information that we have. So for us, that's about a $1.9 million or so increase, right, across various different lines as it relates to health insurance. From a teacher's retirement system, we've talked about this beforehand, you know, approximately about, you know, over $500,000 change there, right? The rate there is 8.24%. From an ERS perspective. Again, these are all the very similar numbers that we've shared beforehand. 119,000, and contract transportation in particular, an increase of 1.6% for contract transportation. In prior presentations, we reflected that simultaneously we've also had a decrease in in-district transportation as a result of that shift from in-district to contract. Next slide, please. From a student services perspective, we are this particular looking at in terms of the 26-27 school year, right? When we combine our tuition lines, right, and student services, professional services lines, right, across the board for next year's budget, we're looking at about a $1.1 million increase, specifically as it relates to student services budget lines. Next year, and we mentioned this beforehand in a prior meeting, we split out some budget lines as it relates to occupational education, right? General education OCAD students and student services, special education OCAD student programs, just to delineate that out, to crystallize, in terms of the tuition rates associated with both of those programs. That's all related to those 2280 codes, again, split out by student services and general education now. These are areas that we referenced as part of our administrative component. Those remain the same, right? From an architectural fee, right? We discussed the $35,000 increase there. Legal fees, approximately $76,000. We made some changes to our district clerk lines as it relates to voting with the change in the Suffolk County Board of Elections, right? Process that we previously discussed. We're anticipating an increase of about $10,000 there. One change there, and actually you'll see in kind of as part of the title on the top line, right, in parentheses with an asterisk, I have anything with an asterisk is kind of with an update, right, from kind of February and March board meetings, right? So I just wanted to kind of touch on those. We previously had talked about and had previously included that I wanted to increase, right, on the B&G personnel. Right now, as we stand right now, the staffing remains the same, right? I don't have that added increase there. We are, as I mentioned beforehand, a couple of other changes are in the mix. I am hopeful that by the end of all this, I'm able to kind of put that at least maybe one right back in there. But right now, as we stand, we did remove that, right, from the budget proposal. From a program component standpoint, these are all the areas that we've reflected beforehand, right? This budget maintains our increased K-5 academic intervention services that we have in place at our 4 elementary schools. Obviously our full day kindergarten program, our district-wide athletic programs, all remain intact exactly as they are right now. Again, that's enrollment dependent, right? If the numbers are there, then they run. The clubs and co-curricular budget lines, right, as we have in terms of this year. The mental health professionals, student support services that we have throughout our district. Again, thankfully, we are back at a place where we're, fully staffed from that department lens in all of our school buildings. Our senior high school course elective offerings, those all remain as we have right now. Again, enrollment dependent, right? So even if, let's say a particular AP course, right, we have it down, it is offered. However, when the dust settles, right, there are 7 students, right, or 8 students, then that course won't run. That's not a budget reason, right? That's an enrollment reason. Our CTE BOCES high school student course offerings, that continues, and I referenced beforehand, right, that everyone that had requested, right, is currently in the schedule for the CTE programs. Our SAIL Elementary Enrichment Program that we started this year, right, our plan is to continue that in our elementary buildings. The instructional IT programs that we referenced beforehand, the physical wellness at the high school, the weight room and fitness access for not just student athletes, but senior high school students in general. Our plan is to continue that. The Chromebook and smart board replacement plan that is maintained in this budget. Next slide, please. From a program component area, again, referencing topics that we've talked about beforehand, this proposed budget includes the Junior High School Academic Center, right, that we're looking to have, I should say maintain, right, because this year we're able to start it for a portion of the year. The benchmark reading program, continuing that thread, right, those are all materials and supplies and professional development with regard to our elementary reading program. Additional software programs, right, for our students to use. Obviously, this is in collaboration with our teachers and our departments, right, through curriculum C&I department, adding additional software programs. Cybersecurity, enhancing that area. PA system, there's a slide specific to that. This is for the senior high school. That is an absolute need and safety topic there. So we would be looking to replace in its entirety, right, our PA system at the high school. The MTSS LinkedIn software program that we talked about in, I believe, 2 different presentations for our tracking, right, and our student data in terms of our MTSS program. And summer incoming K program, maintaining that as well one change there from prior presentations, right? We had talked about not a summer school program, but we had talked about the Regents offerings, right? So that is not included in this. We do have some Title I funds that we may be able to use for this purpose for eligible students, right? But it wouldn't be to offer Regents exams to all students, right, who maybe fail a Regents exam during the summer. There would be opportunities to do that through, right, BOCES and other sites, and we would communicate that out with families, but that part of it is a change from a prior presentation. Again, from a program component, umbrella, right? We did, and we talked about this beforehand, from a music department perspective, reestablishing the multi-year purchasing plan, right? One of the things, and if you recall, during the last meeting, I think we were at like about a $2 million budget gap, right? So in the last couple of weeks, as we adjusted different things, it was making adjustments to close that $2 million gap, right? To still not close out in any programs, right? Maintain all of the programs that we talked about. But we basically took a look at all of the different areas that we were looking to enhance, and we reduced each one of those, or quite a number of them, right, to try and close the gap, right, but not wipe out in its entirety, right, one over the other. So you'll see, again, in some different areas with the asterisks, right, some slight adjustments that we made. So from a music department perspective, we do have the instrument reinstatement plan. However, that now reflects $10,000 as opposed to $20,000. The technology department, that remains the same. The library increase there, again, those were minor, right, $2,500, right? The sale program in terms of materials and supplies, that remained the same. And just as a reminder, that's $20,000, but that's divided into the 4 buildings, so that's really $5,000 per building, right? And then the district-wide field trips, in terms of doubling the budget, that remained the same, because as you recall, we talked about that the current allocation didn't allow for really most of the trips to happen, because the entrance fee for each student were higher, right, to allow for all the trips to happen. So we've doubled that. So what else has changed since the last budget presentation, right? Class sections, and we shared that was an evolving process. So from an elementary school perspective, right now this budget does include an increase, right, of 2 teacher salaries for the elementary school level. That's specifically based on expected kindergarten enrollment. Just as a reminder for those of you that have been part of presentations where we talked about district-wide enrollment and the BOCES projections, right? This was anticipated, that was noted, right, in the BOCES projections, that this year we would be looking at, again, assuming that families send, right, like don't choose to kind of hold back, right, for the kindergarten, we are looking at potentially 2 additional elementary sections, which equates to 2 additional teachers. From a secondary level, this budget includes section decreases, and that's based on declining enrollment, right? So same process that we've been using there. We talked about this in a couple of meetings, right? The transfer to capital with regards to the PA system at the high school. A couple of other areas that were adjusted in the budget from a decrease perspective, right? Salary budget differences, right, for all 26-27 school year new hires. So all of the letters in which, not including the letters that we received in the last couple of days, right? Anyone that was retiring, obviously they were removed from the budget, right? And then a replacement salary was placed in that same spot, right? And obviously that's a different amount for someone that's exiting and has been in the district for 30-something years versus, let's say, a brand new teacher, right? So those budget lines were all decreased to reflect those. Number of aides and paraprofessionals, again, based on, and this is still ongoing, right? Some changes in terms of some hallway duties, also some changes in terms of students maybe recommended or not recommended for paraprofessionals, right? So based on information that we have at hand, we reduced some of those lines. And we had previously talked about the in-house transportation costs that we continue to decrease and monitor, right, as that shift happens. The reality is, though, that the contract transportation is increasing. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Galante, right? So obviously, again, in the last couple of months, we've been talking about all these different areas, you know, specifically within them. Now it's everything kind of combined, right, in the next couple of slides.
Okay, so what is a budget presentation without 13 slides of numbers? So here we go. So in the previous 2 board meetings, when you saw these slides, that last column to the right was the actual amounts for 24-25 budget. For this presentation, we changed it. We're making it the variance between the 25-26 budget and the proposed 26-27 budget. So that's the only difference that you'll see on the slides, besides the changes that were made. So I'm not going to go line by line. Only we'll look at the areas where the variances were either, you know, a high increase or a low decrease. And so for this slide, let's look at line 8, 1040, district clerk. So that had an increase of almost $47,000. And what drove that increase was, like Dr. Farrelly said, Suffolk County Board of Elections decided that they were not going to run the budget elections for school districts anymore. So the school district had to take over the machines. So with that comes maintenance of the machines, the ballots, training for the machines, things like that. And also, again, we have been shifting some lines, especially BOCE services, to the correct budget areas where they go. So in the previous years, the district clerk lines never showed a BOCES charge, which they do. We do have a BOCES charge, and that's for the ballots, the signatures, the books that you have to get from BOCES that provides that. So that's kind of what drove that line up to that amount.
Ms. Galante, I'll also share as an aside, Ms. McNamara and I were just chatting, right? We're going to need to adjust that line again.
Ouch.
You know, again, as it evolves, right?
Yes.
So we have to send out legal notices, right? So the legal notices for the budget, every school district, you know, has to do that. As we're doing that now, right? So Amanda was just shared of some increased cost associated, right, with some of the postings of the legal notice that have to go out and for, you know, different occasions. So we chatted that once those invoices and whatnot come through, we'll see what the total is, and then we'll need to adjust in terms of next year's budget to account for that difference there. Again, just evolving lines, right,
Yep.
as this information comes through. Thank you.
No problem. And then now, no, let's stay on that slide. I got one more line to look at. So on line A, 1310, you had a reduction of about $43,000. And what drove that is in the business office. Now, that's all the expenses for the business department. We had 2 retirees, and we had 1 employee go over to another district. So now you have 3 new employees in the business office. So that drives down the salary costs for the department.
Salary differences, yep.
So that was that. Next slide, thank you. Again, almost the same scenario with line 1430. You have a change of a few, you're going to have a retirement in June in personnel. You had someone else in personnel move to a different position in the district. So again, that drove down the salary costs in that line. That's usually what does the reductions. Now let's look at line 1680, central data processing. So what was in that line, that $500,000, was a lot of BOCES charges, like for eSchool, for Questar, for Envision, for Parent Square, for a lot of things that were really should be in various departments throughout the budget. Because I would like our director of IT to monitor all the services that we get from BOCES, to make sure that what we're paying for, we're actually using. And you know, we all know we use eSchool and we're, you know, using Parent Square, but there are a lot of other BOCES charges that if it's not in his budget, he has no idea that we're paying for it. So we took that $500,000 and we spread it out in other departments. And some of it, for an example, went to our district clerk because she'd never had BOCES as one of her lines. So it just makes it very transparent for everyone involved. If someone says to me, how much do we pay for this from BOCES, I don't have to like go fishing through all these lines trying to find that BOCES service. It's kind of clear. And another reason for changing the lines or adding lines is that at the end of every school year, we have to do a lot of reporting. And we do this for one report called the ST3. And it kind of mirrors, it should mirror like the budget numbers that you use, but not, not exactly. So sometimes, again, when we do that report, we have to kind of dig into a budget code just to pull out what we should reporting on separate lines. So this way, it also will make the reporting at the end of the year easier and clearer for everyone involved. Okay? So again, so you'll see that $500,000 in different areas as we go through these other lines. Now, did you want to ask questions as we went slide by slide like we did last time?
I did have a transportation question. I didn't want to interrupt because you transitioned so smoothly to Ms. Galante. But the transportation, when the contracted service is covering a route, for you get the emails in the morning that they're covering a certain route, we're paying a higher rate for that coverage than we are the contracted rate, the scheduled contracted rate, or
It depends on which route. In some cases, yes.
okay, because it's a last minute addition. Is that what it would be?
Well,
premium.
It also depends, right? So we do have a plan in place now where they do give us, where we plan for X number of, right, substitute,
Give an allotment.
drivers.
Okay,
Exactly,
understood.
right?
Okay.
So it depends, and it also depends on whether or not that, I'll call it borrowed or sub, transportation route is also shared with another district, right?
Okay,
Like the cost of
okay.
that is different than if
Okay,
it was only
gotcha.
WB. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, next slide. And so this is the last slide in the administrative component. And again, our variances really are not high. The Department of the Curriculum, that would be Mr. Payne's area. 2020 is all our building principals, assistant principals, and everything they need to run their buildings. Again, a little decrease there due to the fact that you consolidated last year one building, so you just not having that extra principal, again, drives that salary line. And then the research and planning, it was decided that we would not use BOCES for that since we already have the plan for the next few years. And then maybe in a few years, we would reach out to them
Yes.
to them to do that. So that was all of the administrative component, and you see it's about $7.5 million for the 26-27 school year. Okay, next slide. So next slide is our capital component. And the driver here is operation and maintenance of our buildings, our facilities, which you know need a lot of work. And the board has instructed our facilities director to try to do more work in-house. It does save the district a lot of money when we do it ourselves. We actually, not long ago, hired an electrician who's who's really has saved the district hundreds of thousands of dollars in the couple of months that he's been here, because he's licensed electrician, so he's able to do a lot of work that we would have to call in a third party to do normally. So that's kind of drives up that variance for the operations and maintenance budget. Again, it's salaries, it's all the contractual obligations for building and ground, supplies, materials, and things like that. And then I guess we could look at the A9730, our bands. Again, you had to go out the past few years to borrow some bands for some legal obligations. And again, that's just the interest that we have to pay on those bands every year. So your capital component went up about $681,000 from this year to next year, with $14 million for the 26-27 school year. Okay, so now we go into the program component. Okay. So the program
I got a
component.
question. Just, I'm sorry, in reference to the bands.
Yep.
What part of that is controllable as far as the budget?
Well, from what I understand, you had to go and ban for certain legal obligations. And once all that is done, you'll go out and put all those bans into a bond.
Right,
So right now, you're just paying interest on the bans.
gotcha.
Last year, we did pay a little bit of principal on the ban, because we had extra money in our debt service
Right.
to lower it. But it depends when you go out, what the interest rate's gonna be.
Right.
And the term of the
Gotcha.
bond. Yeah.
Understood.
And those borrowings were the
Yep.
CPA.
Yep.
Okay, so A 2110. So in that line, that's our teaching our regular school. It's up $433,000. And just to give you an idea, it's salaries, yes, but it's not just teacher salaries. It's salaries for our substitute teachers, our aides. In that line is where we also pay for students that go to charter schools, which has been increasing from year to year, our charter school enrollment, and also any foster child that comes in the district that we need to pay for. And also in those lines is our student conferences and field trips. Supplies, again, that all the buildings need, the teachers need, for all the different disciplines, things like that, textbooks and things like that. So that's drives the increase in that line. 2250, teaching special ed. So again, Dr. Farrelly hit on this a little bit. When you look at this slide, it doesn't look like $114,000 is a big increase. But again, in last year, or this year that we're in now, in that code was the CTE program, or the OCET program, for the special ed students. So we pulled that out, and now that line, that money is in the 2280 code, together with the CTE or OCET program for our regular ed kids. So you have, I think, about 68 children in your regular ed, OCET program, and 53 children in your special ed OCET program. And they're both combined in that 2280 line. So if you really want to know how much your special ed, your 2250 line went up, I think Dr. Farrelly had it on a different slide.
Right.
It was about $1.1 million and not 114. Okay? A little bit, it's a little hard this year to compare certain things because we're moving things around, but I think it is, because I know for the ST3, the 2280 line is definitely reported separately than 2250. So, and I'm not sure in the past if it was broken out or not.
Yeah, no, the diluting some of these lines or spreading them out is helpful, because I remember last year,
Yeah.
the questions that were coming in were, what's this number? And it would be, well, it's for this, it's for this, it's for this. And you'd be going into these finite budget lines trying to
Right.
get to that total. This maybe helps that a little bit, so.
Definitely, yeah.
Quick question for you. I
Sure.
have a quick question about the, about A2110. You mentioned that part of that line item is to pay for charter school students.
Right.
Can you kind of elaborate a little bit about what it is that we're paying for the charter school
You're paying for their
kids?
tuition. The state sets a tuition rate for
Okay.
charter schools. And if you decide to send your child to a charter school, we have to pay that tuition.
In addition to the parents paying the tuition to the charter school as well?
No, the parents don't pay for charter school.
Oh, we do?
We do.
Okay.
Yes.
And then do you have a dollar amount based off of, what of the $33,500,000 that we're budgeting for is going direct to
$300,000.
300,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in news and notes, I had broken down where we are for this school year, right, in terms of the number of students, right? But in the budget, it's about 3,000, and if I recall correctly, I'm going to round, right, about 15,000 in terms of, right, per student.
Yeah.
So within that line for the charter school tuition, it's about
About
300,000.
300,000. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
That's all. Thanks.
So, I guess, next slide. Again, not much variance on this slide. We'll go down to computer-assisted instruction, 2630. Again, you see a large variance. And that, again, is caused by moving a lot of that $500,000 BOCES charges to the IT line and technology line, because a lot of it did belong to IT. So again, that's what drove that line up for him, not really a major increase in that line. If I'm trying to remember from before we moved, we shifted things. I think his increase, I don't even think it was 100 grand. I think it was pretty low. But that was due to BOCES being moved into the 2630 line. Okay, and next. 2815, $184,000 is your variance. And what are health services? So when we have West Babylon students attending schools outside of the West Babylon district, they can go to a private school, a parochial school. They're provided in those schools with health services that those schools then bill us back for those health services that they provide our students with. So again, that has been going up. I believe your private and parochial enrollment has been going up, so that kind of makes sense that the health services also go up. And it's based on, again, the salaries that they pay their health service providers. Some districts go through BOCES to provide those health services, and some have their own nurses that provide those services. So that's that line for the health services.
Those are all the
And-
contracts that you see often in almost every agenda, right?
Right.
You know, an established contract with district, you know, XYZ, right? Hicksville School District for health services, right?
Right.
That's specifically tied to all those. Yep.
Okay, so let's see. We can go to the next slide. And pupil transportation, 5510. Again, on that line, you see a decrease of a little over $800,000. That's because a lot of your own transportation is not being used. We're switching over to the contract transportation more because of the inability of the district to hire bus drivers. They're just not around, they're just not applying. If they come, they work a little bit and then they leave. So again, if you look at the 5540 line, contract transportation, yes, that's going up $1.6 million, but then you could kind of offset it by that decrease of $801,000. So you do have an increase in transportation of about $800,000 because one is offsetting the other. And that's not unusual because we do plan for a couple of extra runs, buses, whatever you want to call it, for the following year, which you never know. So,
We tighten that even a little bit more.
yeah. So, again, I think there may be a couple of more retirements of some bus drivers coming down the pike. And again, we will look into that and tweak that even further. BOCES transportation, the last line, we don't use BOCES for transportation anymore, so that's that. And the next slide, 8060. Okay, so I think Dr. Farrelly already kind of
Yes.
touched on these lines. Teachers' retirement, our rate is now for next year 8.24, whereas for this year it was 10.5. So the rate went down. Our contribution rate for teachers' retirement is down. So that's what drove that savings. And the FICA is up. FICA is based on the taxes that we have to pay on payroll taxes. And so naturally, everyone's payroll for next year contractually goes up a little bit. So naturally, the FICA that we have to pay also increases. Next slide. And on this slide, A 9060, again, health insurance. We went from 8% to 2% in one year, to 2%, 9% in another year. So now we're going from 9%, and the question mark is the first half of 2027. What is that going to be? We're being told anywhere between 12 and 15%. We're kind of going around the 12% mark for the budget.
Yeah.
Hoping that, it'll come in at that rate, if not lower. That would even be nice. But that's what's driving that up almost $2 million, that variance. Dental insurance, you see, went down a little bit. We didn't change the dental insurance, but we did change out the agent that we use, and he was able to get us a better deal for the same dental insurance, and also throw in vision, which is just paid for by the employees. So that was a little bit of a savings on that benefit. And the next slide, which is the last slide, the interfund transfer. So again, Dr. Farrelly had a slide in there that said that we were going to use $250,000 for the high school PA system. So that's part of that transfer, and the rest of the transfers for special ed that you have every year to cover the district cost of the special ed charges for the summer. So we're always a little short, so I just raised it. I think it was $300 last year to $350 for special ed, and the other $250 is for that capital project that we're going to do for the high school PA system. And that brings the program component for next year to about $119.9 million. Next slide. And if we add up all our components together, we will have a total budget for next year of $141,539,066. 26-27 proposed budget. Okay. Next slide. This was in one of our other presentation. It just talks about the tax levy. Your tax levy that we calculate is not your tax bill that you get in the mail. It's not your tax rate. It's a combination of your assessment of your home, the tax levy, which gives you your tax rate, and so on and so forth. If you have any kind of deductions, like a veteran's exemption or anything, everyone has different things in their taxes. I mean, that's reflected on your tax bill also. So we can't say that, because this is your tax levy, this is what your taxes are going to be, because we don't do that calculation. That calculation is done by the town of Babylon. Everyone says the 2% cap. Why is my levy a little higher than 2%? And we all know that 2% is just that CPI number in the formula. That can't be higher than 2%. So right now, I think CPI is over 2%, if I'm not mistaken, and going up. Yeah. But in the formula, they can not use more than a 2%. That's where it's capped. So next slide. And you'll see that in that calculation on the line, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth line down, your allowable levy growth factor is 1.02 or 2%. That can never change as far as the law goes now. So doing that calculation gave us a proposed tax levy of $87,923,724, which equates to a tax levy of 2.21% for the 26-27 school year. And that's the allowable legal levy that the district can provide, and it is does not need a majority, it only needs a simple majority vote, meaning 50% plus 1. Okay, we're not piercing the cap, we're not doing anything like that. Simple majority vote, 50% plus 1. So this is a slide that shows our revenues, and it's, sorry, it's kind of small. It's even small on my thing. But anyway, bottom line is state aid, we did receive 1% increase in our foundation aid, but there's a lot of talk out there that we will get another 1%. I did receive something saying that that was probably going to be a good possibility. So that really we're reflecting a 2% increase in foundation aid on our revenue side, just so you know. Because if that other 1% comes in, we still can't raise state aid. We already did that. And then all the rest of your revenue that came in, we are using our reserves. We are using reserves for ERS, TRS, workman's comp, and unemployment. And we are appropriating about $500,000 from our fund balance. Needed to do that so that we could close that $2 million gap that we showed last time we had the budget presentation. So now you see we do have a balanced budget of the $141,539,066. All right, this is just a slide of the district's fund balance over the past few years. And pretty much you have stayed almost, within the 18 million range. Then it went down a little, then up a little. And then last year we were able to fund a lot of our reserves in a nice positive way. So it would be kind of the district's goal to keep that momentum going if possible. Some years you can, some years you can't. Probably this year we will not close with that type of fund balance left because you have your transportation this year that was kind of not budgeted for exactly for what it's coming in as. And no one's fault because no one knew how much of contract transportation you were going to. You always have that increase in special ed. That's just across every district is seeing that. And then also the health insurance, we were on 2%. Whoever thought it would go up to 15% in 1 year? That's, that was not anticipating, that either. So hopefully when we close, we still will be able to fund some of our reserves and keep around, that 20 million mark, if not more, depending on how much we have. Next slide. Oh, okay. So then I was asked to do a slide of how much of the reserves that we have been using. So in 21-22, you use like a little over 2 million. 22-23, again, you're in the same ballpark. 23-24, you did use a lot more of your reserves. But then again, in 24-25, then you went back down to the 2.3 million. I think this year we're in now, I think you're under the 2 million mark that we used in this year. I think we were like 1.5, if I'm remembering correctly. And in next year's estimate right now, you're again just over the 2 million. I think you're 2.3 or 2.4 that you're using. So you're right in the same ballpark that you've been in, which is a good thing.
Well, I think 2 years ago, a huge chunk was from fund balance, right? The year that we had the 2 budget votes. It was a large percentage.
Yes, a higher.
Percentage-wise.
Right, higher percentage, yeah, definitely.
But in reference, when we look at the reserves, just to reiterate or make sure I'm right, we can only use up to what we expense from some of those reserves?
What we're expecting to correct, yep.
Right, so.
Like for workers' comp and those, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, and I'm going to assume some of the others here, is the rate at which we're using our reserves should not exceed the rate at which we're replenishing them, because
Right.
we're going to get into, we're going to have a
Right,
problem. So,
that's the right
yeah.
way to use them. You
I mean, every
shouldn't-
district does use them. It's
Right.
just that we cannot return to that cycle of, especially when, your budget is increasing and, you're maintaining the same level, but proportionally, it's not the same because it's less, percentage-wise. I think monitoring the rate of usage to what we're replenishing is going to be the key.
Right.
Because it's good to use the
Absolutely.
reserves. That's what it's there
You're
for.
supposed to use your
But
reserves.
not to
Not-
rely on it in a decline. That's
Right.
going to be, that's
Right.
really what we, as a
Should
board.
stay
and-
similar, right? You're gonna have some years where maybe a little
Yeah.
bit more, a little bit less, but you should stay similar without having a lot of that 23, 24, right? Like
Like that was
huge use
double.
and
That was
then
almost
unable
double.
to replenish, right?
Correct.
Because then, right, correct.
Yeah. And that'll just keep you even, you know what I'm saying? And then if you have a years that where you could put even more away, that's even better.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on, I have to say, it depends on what's happening out there.
Yeah,
Depends
you're going to
on-
get hit with those
You're gonna
big
get hit with
increases
that.
and, or
Yes.
things that are not even necessarily program-related specifically. You have to not rely on those things to keep the budget going.
Yep, yep. All right, and that's it, Dr. Farrelly, you wanna,
All right, next slide, please.
Next
Where
slide.
are we? Okay, so generally, right, we're accustomed to obviously the first proposition number one, right? So that will be the budget, right, for our 26-27 school year. Next slide, please. As Victoria, Ms. Galante shared, right, this is our total budget, inclusive of all of the three main component areas. Next slide, please. So what happens if the proposed budget proposition does not pass on May 19th, right? We've mentioned this, in prior years, right? The Board of Education can do one of the following, right? Submit a defeated budget for a revote, right? It could be exactly the same budget that is presented to the community, right? Or it could be a revised budget that's shared for the revote, right? For the community, or adopt a contingency budget, right? If the budget is defeated a second time, right, the Board of Education has no choice but to adopt a contingency budget. So what does a contingency budget mean, right? We are restricted, right, in terms of what can be included within the contingent budget, right? So legally required, right? We have to ensure that we operate and maintain school buildings and educational programs, right? All of the legal requirements, contractually, preserve the property, right? Ensure that the health and safety of students, right, and staff, right, continues. What is not included, right, in a contingency budget? Any sort of, any new equipment, right, that was referenced throughout various different department meetings, right, or budget presentations, those would need to be removed from the budget, right? The public use of school buildings and grounds that we currently have in place, we wouldn't be able to do that, in terms of any sort of cost to the district as a result of public use of school buildings, non-essential maintenance, capital expenditures that was referenced beforehand, right, would not be allowed, non-instructional, non-unionized employee salary increases. Those, again, anything that's not tied specifically to a contract, right, then wouldn't proceed. So specifically for WB, what does that mean from a dollar perspective, right? That means a 0% tax levy increase, right? From when you compare from prior year to the new year. So for us, that equates to 1.8, almost $1.9 million, in which the budget would need to be reduced for us to operate under a contingency budget. How would we reach, right? How would we ultimately obtain a $1.9 million reduction in the current budget? It is by any and all, right? A combination of all or portions of these areas that are listed here, right? The things that, Ms. Galante mentioned beforehand, right? Health insurance, right? We're looking at a $1.9 million increase. That doesn't change, right? Like the cost for health insurance doesn't change. The contractual obligations, that, doesn't change. So it would come from any combination of, it's the Sale Elementary Enrichment Program and associated personnel, right? I share that because, again, programs are made up by personnel. Athletics programs, whether it's junior high, JV, and or varsity, right, or any sort of combination, and all the associated Section 11 fees, right? When we think of athletic programs, we think of maybe just the coaching stipends, right? But it's everything associated with that, equipment or uniforms, Section 11, transportation, right? There's a lot of different referees, right? Costs associated with that all of those budget lines. Co-curricular programs, field trips, alternative evening high school program, junior high school academic center, software programs that we've talked about, all equipment. Proposition number 2, we've talked about in our prior board meetings. We are, and we also had a lengthy, beautiful presentation with regards to the junior high school construction project, right? So our proposition number 2 will be asking to utilize the remaining $3 million funds from the 2022 capital project, right? That was done and that came in under budget. That was the high school roof, right? That was the South Bay water line. That project came in lower, right, than the anticipated total amount, which was great, right, which left us with about $3 million. During those presentations, we included in those public presentations that if we had money left over, we would go to our B-list items, right? The B-list items did include and talked about the back of the junior high school. So what do I mean? That whole asphalt area, that is all, right, the broken up, right? The tennis courts, the basketball courts, right? That it's a disaster. The handball court, that whole area there was included in those presentations. It was also included in the SEQA, right? That was done with regards to that. And the proposition referenced those. In going through the review process with the State of Education Department, several different departments approved it from the state. The Finance Department requested they wanted that language of the B-list items that we previously presented to the community to be formally included in a proposition, right? So this is reiterating that. Again, we went through that process with the state as we talked about beforehand. Their offices were going to review it, but ultimately they're going to get back to us in a few months. We don't want to lose the opportunity to just have the proposition there and have our community reiterate that we can utilize those funds, and that will expedite the process for the project. This I need to crystallize and will continue to repeat until that very day, right? Has no impact on the 26-27 budget. I repeat, no impact on the tax levy, no impact on the budget at all, right? So this is authorizing us to utilize those remaining funds, which we previously already, right, spoke to the community about at that point in time, to address those facility concerns outside of the junior high school. Next slide,
We're
please.
asking everybody to vote yes again.
Correct.
Essentially.
Essentially, exactly, right? So here's a picture of one of those presentations that we previously looked at and the board authorized, right, of the junior high school, right? So we start off with the track. That's not going to be, and then there's just to kind of visualize, those are bleachers, right? So it's all of that work there. So the tennis courts, right, would be redone. The handball court would be redone. The basketball courts would be done. That area there with those tents, what are they called again? I'm calling them tents. Thank you, the shade. So there, right, some seating area. So really a nice, we know what it looks like out there, right? So redoing that whole area, I will share, as we talked about there. Obviously, don't hold us to the coloring and those pieces. Those types of specs will happen later on. But this is the general framework from a sizing perspective and from what will go there perspective in terms of the junior high school construction program. Important to reiterate again that this has no impact, right, on the 26-27 budget expenditure plan or the 26-27 tax levy. None at all. So what happens, right, if the community votes proposition number 2 down? That junior high school construction project, it doesn't happen, right? The tennis courts, the handball court, those pieces, that project then is not completed. We then utilize the remaining funds from that capital project to pay off debt, right? So the areas that Ms. Galante shared, right, kind of a multi-year, it gets embedded into the payoff of debt, and the junior high school construction project does not get completed. Proposition number 3, right? So this is new to our discussions. Now, we have talked about little bits of this, but not formally under this process, right? In May of 2023, we asked our community, and our community approved, right, the establishment of a capital reserve fund, right, for future facilities capital needs. The purpose of that was, as we have obviously every school district, right, aging, right, buildings, so that as things, right, came up in terms of general facilities pieces, we wouldn't have to consistently go back to, let's do a vote on a, huge kind of capital project or whatnot, to be able to slowly build that and then utilize those funds for facilities needs. For reference purposes, that specific reserve now has about $5.5 million, right, Ms. Galante? So we have talked about, and we had our facilities presentation, right, for the school year a couple of months ago, right, where we referenced kind of various different areas. An area that I am proposing for us to consider as part of a third proposition, right, for the community, is for the community to allow us to, now the community already authorized the establishment of the reserve. That's there, right, and these funds are there. The law requires, although the community approved it and approved it for all a very long list of different facilities needs, every time that we are going to utilize that capital reserve, right, we do need to have a formal proposition for the community to say, okay, now you can use that money for blank facilities purpose that you previously, that were part of the list of things to authorize to use it. So that's what this would be. My recommendation to the board, we've had many board walkthroughs every year, right? So the condition of our ceiling tiles and lighting, right, throughout our buildings. Our facilities department has done a phenomenal job of slowly, now we did stop for a little period of time, of doing some of the work internally, right, of changing our lighting and our ceiling tiles. So I am proposing that our board consider adding a proposition asking our community to allow us to replace, right, our ceiling tiles and lighting throughout the district. Again, we've done the walkthroughs, you know what they look like. The other area, right, is for us to upgrade our fire and burglar panels throughout the school district, depending on the building. Some have more needs, right, than others. So that would be part of that project. There's a question on the third, but I did include it there for, obviously, again, part of the discussion. We've talked about this beforehand, right? The parking needs, right, at Tooker Avenue Elementary and JFK. JFK is a little trickier, right? Is a significant need. Not just, we've talked about the additional cars, right? Some trustees have joined me at different points in time, right? During arrival, during dismissal, right? Because of the makeup also of how those streets, are set up, right? And lack of sidewalk in some places, right? The parking in all of that area needs to be addressed, right? There's no other way to say it, right? People are kind of double, triple parked, right? And we just don't have the parking space, right? So I put a question mark there as to, would that be something that would want to be added as part of this proposition? Again, this proposition would have zero impact on the 26-27 budget expenditure plan. This proposition would have zero impact on the tax levy for next year, right? This is authorizing the money that's already, portion of the funding that's already in the capital reserve, right, for this reason, right, for these reasons, if we want to do that, right? So just some information, and I shared with the board. So we have our facilities department, right, our facilities director, trustees know this, right? We've had a number of different contractors come, take a look, right, give us some estimates. It's a little bit, I'll use the word difficult, right, in terms of giving us hard numbers, because in reality we're talking about, work to happen years down the line, right? So needless to say, but important to say, that they're hesitant to give hard numbers, right, in terms of estimates. So in looking at, right, and just to kind of frame it in terms of the 3.5 million, right, so JFK specifically, right, if we're looking at the hallway ceilings and lighting replacement at JFK, approximately $350,000, right? These numbers, by the way, again, I have to put an asterisk, absolutely can change. They don't have the 10% differentials. They don't account for if asbestos replacement, right? Like things like that have to be addressed, right? Tooker Avenue, right, about 240,000. Junior high school, about $1 million, 1.1 million, give or take, right? Senior high school, similar, right? So in general, when we look at kind of ceiling tiles and lighting, right, we're in that low $3 million number, right? When we talk about the fire and burglar panels throughout the district, again, some buildings more than others, and depending on the upgrade and depending on to what extent do we want, right, in terms of there, again, ranging 100 to 200-ish, right, in terms of dollars there, right? You know that I'm not suggesting that this is what we would do, right? But there's so many, when you look at it in terms of systems, it could be the alarm that goes off and it's also a camera connected to the digital provisions, right? There's so many add-ons, right, as part of that process. So those numbers range there. So within those categories, we're at the low $3 million number already to begin with, right? And then again, question mark, do we want to consider additional parking at Tooker, at JFK, at both? Question mark. If yes, and I'm doing kind of a lot of ifs, and I'm going to circle back around, right, then I would suggest that really that $3.5 million should be higher, right, to allow for, if we wanted that work to happen, to allow for the amount to be there.
Have you had any rough estimate of what it would cost to reconfigure parking at Tooker and or JFK?
Yeah, so in terms of, let me just go back to, Mr. Lajudis and his, let me just go back over, in the presentation that we did at that point in time, we did have someone come over, and you know that back area, I think you were with me, Mr. Reckman, which is one, remember that we looked at? So not necessarily reconfiguring, but adding, taking a space now, that's currently kind of grass area, and it's really rarely ever used, right? If you've been there when the fire department comes and they do like a drill for the kids and stuff, it's that area out there.
Are you talking about Tooker or JFK?
Tooker.
Okay.
Right. So the cost, to answer your question specifically, around $350,000, right?
For both buildings or just the one?
No, each
Okay.
one.
Got it. Okay.
Each one, right? So that's why I'm suggesting that if we wanted to add additional parking to both Tooker and JFK, we would need to raise the authorization to pull additional funds from that reserve, right? Higher than the 3.5 to account for that, because
you
the
said
estimates are around 350,000.
And you said that in the reserve today is about 5.5.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. And again,
So
not
it's
piercing the
probably
cap.
a little bit higher, right? We were talking about that beforehand. So the closeout of the year, right, it's about 5.5, and then plus interest a little bit higher, but
Got it. And again,
5.5.
this proposition is not going to pierce the cap. It's not going to
No,
have any
this
effect
has
on that.
nothing to do with piercing the cap. This has nothing to do with the 26-27 budget, nothing to do with the tax levy. This is funds that are currently sitting in capital reserve to be used for facilities purposes. That's why it was established, right? All under those legal grounds. The community authorized that. It's now saying to the community, okay, here are the reasons why we approved it, to use it for these facility pieces. We do want to now use it for this one and that one, right? And
it can only be used for capital improvements.
Can only be used for
Right,
that,
at the end of the
correct.
day, you know, everything on this list has to get done at some point, and
Correct.
we could say no, and then in
just is-
in
Sit
5
there, we'll
years,
have to do it again.
we're one of these districts taking out a $50 million bond to do things that we could have done free and clear. If it has to get done, it has to get done. My question is, we approve it, it gets approved. Let's say we get to the third item and we don't have enough. We don't do that item.
Right.
What happens with those funds? They just
They're just in
sit
there.
back
They're
in
just
there.
in there, correct. Yep.
Is it the same situation with the bond where we have to have B items or no? Like, let's
No,
say we
no.
come in under budget, then it just goes back to the account.
No, because ultimately, right, whatever's not listed there, and feel free to, right, like, in the future, at another vote, then we would have a proposition to say, we want to expend X number of dollars for, heating system. I shouldn't say that.
Windows.
Windows is a better example, yes. Thank you.
I don't even know if it's daylight out.
Yeah.
I can't even tell.
So yes, correct.
Okay.
Anything that we don't list in this proposition, right, and we wanted to do later on, assuming it was part of the list of things that was included when the reserve was originally established, right, which that included everything, including the kitchen sink, right, remember that, right, we would need to go to our community at a vote and say, oh, you know, we're doing a proposition because we want to utilize it for windows. Yep.
Thank you.
Next slide, please.
Doc,
Yes.
when would we be looking to do this work?
Okay. Great
And
question.
by who? Would we be doing the school ceiling tiles and lighting?
Great question.
outsourcing
so the who, and the how, and the time, the date, right? We wouldn't be establishing now as part of the proposition, right? So the proposition would be asking for the authority to use up to that dollar for those amounts. Now, the Who, specifically for the tiles and lighting, we know that we have a great B&G team, right, with a number of members that absolutely can do some of these hallways, right? That was also the trickier part in getting some of the estimates, because it's not apples to apples. As we know, when we walk through Tooker Avenue hallway, right, like depending on kind of what certain hallways have in place, the high school, right, some of those it varies the work needed from one hallway to another. So some of those hallway ceiling tiles and lighting, our team will be able to do, and the cost will be significantly lower, right, than in terms of some of the contractors. But that, you know, the who does the work, right, would come in terms of later on, because that would not be part of the proposition, right, you know, in terms of, right, I'd say even when we go out to bid, right, we'd have to go out to bid for the work that would be done by contractors, and then we would select, right, the appropriate contractor to do the work. So I would suggest, again, depending on the topic, the burglar alarm and the fire, that's going to be certain companies, right? But specifically, obviously the parking, additional parking, if we wanted to do that, obviously we would, you know, go out to bid, right, and have a contractor. But specifically the ceiling tiles and lighting, our team could absolutely, and we've seen their wonderful work, right, and it'll help us stretch out the dollar more, right, by having our team do that.
But you're not talking about having this done this summer?
No, definitely
Parking
not
lot,
this
you know,
summer.
The pavement, the parking lot.
No, none of
No.
it in terms of this summer, right? So each one of these projects, even though, again, coming through
gotta
this
go through
funding source,
State-
that state review process, the testing, the plans, right? That whole process of a construction project still happens. We just now would know the funding source, right? Goes to the state, and then we would establish that out. Ideally, right, in terms of the when would be not this summer, the following one. So what is that, 2027, right? Yes.
Absolutely.
So that's the piece with the getting it as part of this vote. Now, there are some districts that do this on a separate kind of vote, but then there's an added cost because you're doing another vote on a separate, right, like time period, as opposed to doing it part of when you're doing your budget vote, right? So by doing it now, then we can work towards that summer of 2027. In the absence of doing that, and in the absence of doing another random vote in like the summer or October, right, like some districts do, then we're waiting for the next May vote for the following summer, because this work would be happening when students are not here. So we kind of stuck with the summer construction project timeline. Yeah. So that is why I'm suggesting and recommending that we consider it for now, right? Because then we can work to have that, you know, the plan would be then summer of 2027.
So the access to the funds would be approved by the community, but the timeline, it's not sensitive to timeline or cost for the individual items. Like, once we have the approval to use it, all that other information could come later on.
Well, the cost we would be capped at the amount
Right, no, we're capped at the amount, but the details in
of
reference to
who,
the
the
who, the
contractor
timeline, the when.
would be, right. I
That's
mean, no,
fine.
we would indicate the summer of 2027. Do we include the timeline?
In the budget resolution for the public, I don't, I'll have to
We'll
look.
check on that, yeah. I don't, actually, wait, I know this here. Nope. So I do have a draft not for tonight, right? But in speaking with, you know, Ms. Sadowski, right? She had started to kind of draft, right, in terms of the proposition. And the draft as it sits here doesn't have the date, so that would be even better, but we'll confirm
We
that.
can verify it, okay.
Yeah. So what I shared with her, and I think I shared it in terms of with the board via email, if we feel comfortable with doing proposition number 3 for this purpose, and we can decide kind of all those pieces, I would then suggest and recommend that we have a quick kind of a special board meeting to then approve the proposition language, right? Like we did beforehand, as part of that.
You really like having us here.
I love board meetings, yes.
It's just a quick 1, 2, 3 vote for that.
It's just, exactly, right? And here's why, right? Because then it helps us, it's crazy how kind of one thing impacts the other, right? So we have, with our budget vote, not just the budget vote, but all these propositions, we have to have legal notice, right? I mentioned the cost of the papers, right? The South Bay paper, the Beacon, right, and whatnot. They have timelines for their newspaper that are like 2 weeks before the actual paper comes out, right? So that is why I would suggest that we have a short special meeting to approve the resolution language so that it could be included then in the legal notices that go out. So first question, do we want to proceed with proposition number 3 to utilize capital reserves for facilities needs?
Yes,
Makes so.
yes.
Second question, if we can go back on one slide, please. Let's start off with the first two. Do we agree that ceiling tiles and lighting throughout district and fire and burglar panels
Yes,
would be the ask?
100%.
Okay. And then the third question, additional parking, Choker Avenue, additional parking, JFK.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's really important to work on the parking because I hear that, teachers park on the street and it's
Yeah.
just
No
really
visitor.
the took.
It's a community, it's not just a school parking, it's a kind of that whole,
That
the
whole- yeah.
community within the area is being
going
affected
through that
by,
even
because of
personally,
the
it's
needing
difficult to
additional.
get through the streets.
Anything that would enhance the aesthetics.
Understood.
So then if you say we're going to want to do the parking for the two schools as well, you would suggest to bump that up to 4?
Correct, as I mentioned beforehand,
Okay.
I would suggest 4.5.
Okay.
Again,
we-
whatever's not used remains there, right? But this is accounting for all those other contingency pieces, the 10% fees here, the found whatever underground, knock on wood, everyone. And then the reverse of that is, it comes in lower, which we've lived through and seen, it stays there,
Yeah.
right? It's no loss, in terms of funding, it is not used.
Yeah, especially with the parking around the schools, it's to do whatever we can to try to make it safer for not only the teachers, but for the students and the parents. 100%, we should definitely do that.
Okay.
No, it's tough to get through there, especially during school hours. Yeah.
I know some of those items there were on the full facility review we did a few years back. Do we have another one of those coming up?
Yes, it is, that's part of the budget, actually,
Yeah.
in terms of the
The fees?
architect fees
Yeah, I saw that,
associated
yeah.
with the review of that, so yes,
Okay, because that, it's good to get some things off the list, but I'm sure there's new things on the list as well.
absolutely, definitely.
And I'm assuming you prioritize those on there based on what's,
Yeah, and the other piece, right, and again, not connected to this, but we discussed it during the facilities presentation with Mr. Logidis, right? We are closing up on the first EPC contract, right? So we've started discussions on 3.0, right? So as that one falls off, we're absolutely on a pause now, but summer, right, have those sit-downs and then come and talk to the board about the next EPC project that does not have an impact on our taxpayers. As a reminder, the EPC funds itself, right, in terms of the work. And quite honestly, one of the biggest pieces that I am hopeful we can do there is our boilers, right? And 'cause those are huge, right, in terms of cost. Again, Mike spoke about those during meetings. Depends on the whole project. Ideally, if that's part of that, that'll take care,
Another thing
of
off
some
the list.
significant high, numbers, right, cost factors in terms of our facilities as part of that EPC.
this is obviously not a bond. We know we're not talking about a bond, but is any of this
Correct.
aidable back from the state? Is there any?
So as long as there is work inside and outside, there would be aid. So for example, the junior high school construction project that we are, in terms of
We're
prop
tying
number
that in,
2, right? The technology classroom, we had a presentation earlier in the year, right? The upgrades to that classroom, that's happening. And the funding for that is happening from the 2015 remaining funds from that capital project. But the state was fine with that approval, right? So we don't have to put it back on in the
Right,
proposition.
as part of a bond, we're making payments for that, whereas with this, we pay it and it's off. So what's the state basing the aid on, right? I mean, once we pay for one of these things to get done.
Yeah.
Let's say the fire systems, we write the check and it's completed, right?
Right. I'm going to double check with you. My understanding is that regardless of the funding source, as long as you're
Okay.
doing inside work and combined with outside work, that the aid associated for the school district still applies, but I will confirm that.
Okay, but it would be for the one time because it's only the one bill
Right.
or
I
the
will.
one invoice.
I
or
definitely will
whatever. Okay.
confirm that.
Okay.
Proposition 2 and 3 is just a simple majority vote?
Correct.
Okay,
Great question. Yes. From a PR perspective, I already started to meet, well, on Prop 2, but I'm going to do that now with Prop 3, right? To create simple one-page flyers, right? So it's crystallized, kind of bookends, no impact to the taxes, no impact to the budget, right? Kind of all those key bulleted points so
Turn
that
the
it's
ballot over.
crystallized. I know. Don't
lot of
forget to
people
turn it
forget.
over
A lot
and
of people
vote for
forget.
Prop 2 and 3. That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Prop 4. No.
Stop. No. This is reiterating those 4 main points that I think I've said enough. All right. So what's coming up next, team? We have our April 14th meeting, and of course, that's way too long for me to not have a board meeting. So I just suggested the 31st special meeting to approve that. But the 14th will be our final budget presentation with some slight modifications, as I mentioned beforehand. Some of the things that we already know we're going to adjust. As we receive those, again, I'll adjust accordingly. Some of the things that I maybe was needed to reduce, we may be able to kind of bump back up. But nonetheless, that will be our formal final budget presentation and the final board review and adoption that day. That's important because then there are all these legal dates that we then quickly pivot to, right? From a district clerk perspective and reporting perspective for all of us as well. May 5th is our public budget hearing that will occur here. I will be attending our building PTA meetings to do a budget presentation. I'll have a little spot in the public library to answer questions for anyone that wants to stop by. So then we'll continue the just communications, right, and sending things out through social media, through Parent Square, obviously through our legal notices. Next slide, please. And again, a reminder to vote May 19th here in an admin, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay.
I'm done. Thank you, Mr.
And
Powell.
we're not even done. We're not
I
done.
know.
We're not adjourning.
No.
Okay, statement of residents on agenda items only. Residents wishing to share a statement. Residents must state their name, address, any organization they represent. They can also write this information on an index card and give it to the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations. Comments about individual students, employees, or individuals are not permitted. Each resident will have up to 3 minutes to speak with a total of 15 minutes allotted. Responses will be given after all statements. Any questions needing further research will be addressed at the next meeting. It's agenda item. If you have a general discussion, there's another statement at the end. Yep, okay. That's it. All right. Okay, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Steve, Kathy, all those in favor? Everyone? Okay. Okay, old business. New business. Nope, we're not talking about the resolution?
Which resolution? No, charter schools?
Yeah.
No, I had shared, because of the length of today, that I moved it to the next one.
We could have handled it, but all right. All right. Okay, statement of residents. Any resident wishing to share a statement, please state your name, address, and any organization they represent. They should also write this information on an index card and give it to the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations. Comments about individual students, employees, or individuals are not permitted. Each resident will have up to 3 minutes to speak with a total of 15 minutes allotted. Responses will be given after all statements. Questions, any further research will be addressed at the next board meeting. Hi.
How are you? My name is Dawn Conboy. I live at 37 Bacon Lane in Babylon. Admittedly, I do not get to many meetings in person, but I do consciously try to watch the meetings online a day or two after the meeting has been held. In the last Board of Ed meeting, a resident spoke about the cancellation of skills classes in the junior high and high school. I must be honest, I was quite taken back as I had no idea or recollection of this was even up for discussion. If you can take away anything from what I'm about to say in my statement of residence, it would be accountability. I do not understand how something so beneficial can easily be taken away, which then led me to think why. I don't need to define what skills classes are or what they mean to the teachers, students, or the family members of these said students. I do not have to remind everyone how extremely beneficial and crucial it is to have a child who is struggling on a daily basis to be able to sit in those skills classes to gain the confidence of a subject, extra help with homework or classwork, with the most important part being continued time for a test to be completed. Which leads me again to the question is why? Why would a program that is that is so desperately needed for the special education child that already struggles to be taken away? Is it money? Is it the students? Is it the educators, or is it lack of space? If it is the teachers, their contracts, or money, fix it and find it. As a parent of a varsity student, miraculously, yes, they do cuts, but you always find the money. If your message is academics is always first, you need to stand by what you say and put education first above everything. Is it the student not taking advantage of the skills classes they were assigned to too seriously? Kick them out. Sorry, I know that sounds harsh, but if they don't want to be there, take it away, which leaves space for the students that not only need to be there, but want to be there. It's called accountability for your actions, which in this day and age often gets overlooked. As the Board of Ed, who often prides themselves on doing above the bare minimum the state requires for special education students, somehow they're always getting cut, but very rarely do I hear of additional services being added back for them. I implore you to do the right thing right now. I do not know if this decision has already been decided, but it's never too late to reverse it. I'm not sure if any of you who sit on this board have a child that has a 504 or an IEP and have personal experience of how beneficial these skills programs are needed. But this is what I do know. We need to listen to those who speak. We need to hold accountability to whoever is making these decisions. Whatever the reason is for these cuts of these classes, fix it before it's too late. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my statement of residence, and have a good night.
Thank you. Exactly 3 minutes. That's the first.
I practiced
Thank
from Lucy.
you. Thank you. Okay, anything else? That's it? Okay. You guys want to talk about anything else? Good? Okay. Need a motion to adjourn. Frank, John, all those in favor? That's everyone? Okay. I'm going to assume it's everyone? All right. All right, tomorrow, yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you so much. Thank you.